I think it's been a while since I've done any teaching on Instagram Live. But today it's something that I have not been able to move past, right? Like there's this spot this morning that came up in my journaling and I'm like, oh shit, this is actually part of my teaching, because it's something that has weaved its way through my life, and it's in every aspect of my work. It's this concept of delayed alignment. In every lineage of spiritual practice, there's this sense of like, you have to delay your gratification, right? And we're in today's society, we're always looking at, oh, everyone wants instant gratification. But there are many of you, if you're like me, who do not align to that. We push off gratification. We push off satisfaction, pleasure, acceptance. We push off even things that are uncomfortable. We just want to avoid it all. It's this delayed alignment is what happens when we are sitting here forcing ourselves to tolerate, to endure life. And ultimately what ends up happening is that we force ourselves into situations that aren't even for us. And we blanket it with the principle of, I'm just being patient. Last year, I really had to face this relationship to patience for myself. If I was just a little bit more patient, things would have worked out. If I was just a little bit more patient, things would have happened. If I was just a little more patient, I would have the thing that I want. But it's because I'm not patient, I'm not having it. As if patience is the reason. But it never is. And I shit you not, ironically, pun intended, it took until December of last year when my pipes froze. And I was literally bagging my own shit because I couldn't put it down the toilet. When I hit this spot of, why the fuck am I being patient with the renovations in my home? Why am I being patient with the things that I require? Why am I being patient? And I realized that the patience was actually only to forgo the pleasure and prolong the suffering. And so I sat with it and I was like, does that mean that I push harder against like the renovations and I make them go? No, that's not what it is at all. I had to look at how I was being patient so I could tolerate the circumstances. The circumstances were going to flow at whatever pace they needed to flow. But I needed to take a look at my interaction with them. And so I paused and I was like, what do I get out of being patient? Like, what's the benefit? What is the perk? Not that there needs to be a perk out of patience, but there's got to be something, right? There's something that I keep practicing this level of patience, so there must be something I'm getting. And what I realized is that there was a badge of honor in society, but also in my family, for doing the hard thing, for putting in the hard work. You know what that meant? That meant that every time something was hard, I'd never let it be easy. There was no way I was going to take the easy route, because taking the easy route was almost shameful. It was like, you can't do that. And so it had me be very embarrassed and shameful about the things that do come easy to me. Making money to me is easy. It isn't easy for some people in my family because they're still attached to making money is hard. So they will endure work environments that don't serve them. They'll tolerate not getting a pay raise. They'll go through all of these situations so they never have money, because that is where the honor is. The honor is making it, even though all the cards were stacked against you. In my home, that was no different. If I could make it to the other side of living in this house and having it be my oasis, then I made it when all the cards were stacked against me. So I remember going down to my uncle's house and just seeing the state of which everyone in my family lived. There was this my uncle was very into like having all the toys and stuff, but I remember telling him, saying, I think I'm done being patient. When do we get to be done being patient? And he's like, well, we don't. I was like, exactly. So my patience is being tied to something, tied to having, right? Or tying my ability to be patient to reception. But being patient doesn't end. So when do I get to receive? See, that was the curse that my great aunt had mentioned that my family always was under, was that we were cursed to live in an unfinished home. And it's not really a curse. It's really the DNA coding of my family to have to tolerate and endure and practice being patient, which really is just a mask of keeping yourself in something that isn't for you. Because everything that is for you comes easy. And it can be a really hard thing to even accept, but like to continue the examples is everything that's for me has always come easy. And that's not an affirmation, that's a fact. When I applied to the apartment building in Montreal, it was easy. And I've had numerous people ask me, they're like, how did you get an apartment that accepts dogs? How did you do this? How did you do that? I'm like, it was just easy. And there's almost, again, that flavor of shame of like, shit, it's not allowed to be easy that I've still held on to. But the truth is, when you let go of things needing to be hard, and you let go of needing to tolerate, needing to endure, needing to practice patience, the only thing you can do is just respond to what's true for you. So what ended up happening is when I was done bagging my literal shit, I realized I need to move. And it's not because there's anything wrong with where I lived, but it was just this reality of I am tolerating these living circumstances. I am enduring this. So I can hopefully maybe perchance get a badge of honor for having gone up against life. That when me and life are duking it out and I'm on the floor and life keeps hitting me time and time again, that everyone's going to feel, wow, look at her. She still came out on top because life kicked her while she was down, instead of being like, you know what? Life, we actually don't need to fight. I'm good. Like, I actually don't need to fight you here. And that's the thing that I think most of our life, society even, is catered towards. It's this idea that we have to fight life. And since moving to Montreal, I've been very much unwinding the inner fighter, the inner killer, the thing in me that's like has to make life so hard. And I as a person, am not a fighter. Can I fight? Abso-fucking-lutely. Do I need to fight? No. Because the fight doesn't actually happen if I'm just following my alignment. My alignment is dictated by what's true, and that was designed far before I was born. And you can feel it. You can feel what's true because it just flows, and it just flows at a rate that is like incomprehensible. And so I got into acceptance that like, okay, what's for me is not to live here while these renovations are completing. What's for me is that I need to move because I am actually worth living life fully and having things progress. See, one of the funny things is with patience is that it tricks you. It says, but if you're patient, you'll see progress. No, that's not always true. If you're patient, you'll often push away alignment. If you're patient, you'll push away satisfaction. You'll push away the things that are meant for you to have because it was too easy for you to have them. How much of my life I have spent not allowing myself to really fully receive the things that were mine to receive because it was just too easy. I got it too easy. So therefore I must have cheated the system somehow. And therefore I'm no good if I actually let myself have this thing. So I would delay my experience of alignment because I was too worried about it came to me too easy. I needed to suffer. I needed to gruel. I needed to work harder to have it. And I'll be honest, everything that is actually mine to have, I don't have to work hard for it at all. It's smooth. It's not necessarily easy in the way that we look at it, but it flows. It's like when dominoes fall. It's when things just all line up in just this perfected way that even when things are imperfect, it's still perfect. And it all just lines up internally. And then you feel yourself in the process. So even in the mess of life, you're like, this mess is still closer to the real thing than the false perfection and patience I was practicing that was so far away from it. And so this entire morning I've been going off on like Facebook and like writing posts and just looking at this addiction to delayed alignment, because really it's always substantiated by, I need to tolerate this thing. I need to endure this thing. And then I just got to ask why. Like, why do you actually need to endure it? Unless you were trying to prove something, as if that is what's required of you. We don't need to prove fucking anything. So going back to the conversation I had with my uncle, one of his things, and which was big with the men in my family, was just like, yeah, but if you're not patient, you won't have anything. You know, you'll never get what you want because you need instant gratification. Instant gratification isn't my problem. In fact, if instant gratification happens, I don't have the reception to it. I'm just like, all right. Like, case in point, when someone tells me they like me, I have no idea how to receive that. Like, not a clue. Instant gratification is not my problem. I'm very good with sustainable. I'm very good with progress. I'm very good with slow. I don't know how to receive instantly because I'm so good at pushing away my reception. I'm so good at pushing away my gratification. I'm good at pushing away my alignment. Here's the thing. So in my lineage, in orgasmic meditation, if those of you have an issue with it, you can take it up in my inbox and we'll chat. But in my lineage, there was a line, and it was called staying past the peak. And the concept was to always leave on a high note, right? Like, don't wait till it comes all the way down. Just like leave on a high note and it's complete. Everybody's happy, right? But it's also understanding the timing of things, right? So if I am constantly pushing the way to peak, it means that I'm unwilling to trust the divine knowing that I'm supposed to leave something, that something is supposed to end. Staying past the peak is something that I have done over and over and over and over and over again. Like insanely. I've stayed past the peak in relationships. I've tolerated and endured things. Why? Because there's a badge of honor for really sticking it through the hard times in relationships. Right. But those weren't hard times. Those were things telling me that it's not in alignment. And I was refusing to listen. And so I stuck to it. I abandoned myself. I crossed my own boundaries and I stuck to it. I tolerated. I endured. I thought less of myself. I lowered my self-worth. I tolerated. I endured. I was patient. Eventually it's got to blow up anyways. Because it's not true. It's not true for me to have that particular relationship. I've stayed past the peak in my bachelor's degree. I worked 10 years on it until finally I was like, you know what? Maybe this thing isn't for me. I had 2 classes left before graduation. And I decided I'm going to walk away from this thing. Because I had stayed long past when it was true for me to leave, because I was fighting against life and saying, no, if I just keep working at this, if I keep tolerating this, if I keep enduring all the pain and the turmoil that everyone else has gone through, that I'm going to be just as worthy of everything as someone else. As if proving is what determines my worth. I've stayed past the peak 1,000 times, and really that is just evidence of delayed alignment. The addiction to delaying alignment, to pushing it away. Instead of hearing the note, yeah, this is done, this is complete, I'm over it, and shifting. And this is the thing, you have to know yourself well enough to say, well, am I someone who's addicted to instant gratification? Because if that's you, then this content really isn't for you right now. We'll talk about that later. Because instant gratification, you may constantly be leaving things that are for you at the slightest mishap. I'm talking to the people who have an addiction to delaying alignment because you can feel the dissonance, but you don't leave anyway. This happens in friendships when we stay too long. We know the friendship is over, But we wait for it. We're like, okay, well, maybe if I'm just patient, they'll come around. Maybe if I just tolerate how shitty they are, they'll change. Maybe if this, maybe if that, if this, then that. Yet it never works out because that's not how truth works. And the irony of it is that you can only ever tolerate or endure if you leave your body. If you are entirely mental. If you're in your head enough to say, okay, but if I just make it through, if I just make it through, if I just make it through. Because the moment that you drop into your body, the pain will be too much to tolerate. The disconnect will be too much to endure. And the direct, true sense of urgency will be so clear that you can no longer be patient. You can only say the thing in real time as it is. The other day, I went on what I'm calling a dumpster date. And it was an exact reflection of this. I went on the date and I was in my body and I met with the guy. And the first 10 minutes I was like, I'm a no. But then I left my body and I went into my head and I was like, okay, well, maybe he's just awkward in the first 15 minutes. Maybe it's fine. Maybe if I just, be patient with him, he'll open up. 10 minutes goes. Now he's insulting me because I don't speak fluent Italian. I was like, okay, well, maybe that's just his humor. Maybe he just thinks that's funny. We keep walking. He condescends me in my business. And I have this moment where I can feel truth. I'm in my body enough to be like, this isn't for me. And I choose to leave it. Because I didn't trust that the way I needed to leave was enough. There was a moment, the peak, to leave on a high note, to not delay alignment for myself. And I saw it and I pushed it away. And we do this all the time. There's a moment where we know that we can either have alignment for ourselves, and it might be messy, and it might be uncomfortable, and it might be ugly, and it might be imperfect, but we still see it. And we're like, okay, if I leave right now, I don't know how to do it and not be a complete bitch. But I need to leave. But maybe I left the moment. But maybe I'll just wait it out. Maybe it'll go away. It doesn't go away. The peak doesn't go away. The realignment doesn't go away. Now it just gets louder and louder and louder back in the background, that we keep gaslighting ourselves out of feeling. That we keep telling ourselves, don't go into the body, because if we go there, then we have to leave. And then I'm definitely going to be the thing I don't want to be. So let's just keep in our mind. Until all of that energy that is meant to guide us back to alignment becomes so putrid that it has to take you out to bring you back to where you need to be. So on this date, there was 12 instances where I dropped into my body, heard the no, and I abandoned it again. To get into my head, to get into my mind and saying, well, maybe if I just endure this, it'll end pleasantly. Maybe if I just tolerate his shitty flirtation, that it's just gonna go away. Total bullshit, right? And then all of a sudden, there was a moment where I dropped in and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I stopped being disembodied where the tolerance, the endurance, and the patience lived. And I dropped all the way in. And I just looked at him and I was like, that didn't feel good. Which is never words that I would have typically used, but I said, that didn't feel good. That actually felt really terrible. And then all of a sudden, I was meeting his egoic defenses and his projections of how I'm rude and how I'm impolite, the thing that I didn't want to be seen as. But at that point, it no longer mattered. I was in my body enough to know that I was delaying alignment for myself. For what? It would have hurt too much for me to gaslight myself and come back into my mind again. It would have hurt too much. And so I couldn't leave that spot now. So was it messy? Was it clunky? Was it imperfect? Absolutely. But imagine if I didn't say anything. Imagine if I left my body again. the amount of energy that would be boiling inside of me that wouldn't have a place to go because it's always trying to push you back into alignment. There was nothing left to endure. His insults weren't for me to endure. There was nothing to be patient with. There was nothing for me to tolerate. I was done. See, I have been so good at disassociating. You pop into a moment, disassociate, pop in, disassociate. And when I really look at my life, that's all it's been. I can get a lot done from a disassociated state, but it will take me down a deep path of misalignment. It will take me down a path where I accidentally create companies that I don't want to be running. It'll take me down a path where I am in relationships with people I don't want to be in a relationship with. It will take me down a path where I'm living where I don't want to be living. It will take me places that look good on the outside, but are so dissonant on the inside. But when I come into my body, when I soften every edge of me that thinks that I can't hear it, that I can't experience it, where even the part of me that's like, no, I got to tolerate the energy of my body. I got to tolerate the truth. When I just soften there and I realize, wow, if I just follow this, I'll be fine. I'll be so fine. So for those of you that have a tendency to push away alignment, because you have the belief that if you endure, you tolerate, you're patient, then maybe you'll get something. I want you to consider that you're already pushing away everything that is yours to receive now. That everything you're pushing away because you think it's got to be hard is already here. It's already available. It's the addiction to pushing it away that you're stuck in. With all of the posts that I wrote this morning, I knew that this particular transmission, whatever it was one that ties two of my bodies of work in the weirdest way because I never fully expected them to. And I'm sweating right now, so don't mind me. See, Supple is a 6-month journey in service to the opening. You can't open if you're not in your body. The idea of having an open mind is just a way to gaslight your pussy. You have to be in your body to open to what is here for you to have, to fully receive, to have your heart open, to have your belly open, to have your pussy open, to everything that's actually worth having in life. You need all of those things open. And if they're not, you're going to have a really hard time to just simply allow it to exist. Tolerating, enduring, being patient pulls you out of the body so that you will never open, so you can never receive. On the flip side, we have Sleaze Motel, a journey of anal alchemy, which seems so separate. And even I was like, how are these two frequencies siblings? Like, how does that work? And the truth is once you have that energy, once you feel into the truth of your body, that's going to feel like a whirlwind. It's going to feel destructive and damning and angry for all the years that you have ignored it. And all of that's perfect because the moment you unclench your asshole, you can ground it. You can feel all of that energy of realignment come into your body and actually make itself solid. A place you cannot leave. A place that you cannot abandon. You open, you ground. You open, you ground. And both of those things take place in the body. So we have to track the places where we leave it, where we abandon it, where we disassociate, where we think tolerating and patience and enduring is going to be the saving grace for us. We don't get that. There's no part of you that actually needs to be patient if you're not in your body. If you were in your body and you're like, I just want the thing, it's a whole different world. So consider, Maybe the thing that you've been wanting is already here. You've just been pushing it away. To give you a more concrete example, I wanted to be able to have a bubble bath at the end of the day. I wanted it so badly. I was like, I just want to be able to soak my body. I just want that for myself, and I don't have running water, and I have to bag my own shit. Like, literally, I was just like so victimized. Like, life was just hitting me one after another, and it was like, I'm so far away from the thing. And what I realized is, like, the moment I stopped wanting to be patient, endure, and tolerate, I could just move. And I could have the thing that I've been wanting. I could just receive it fully, because it was like, oh, I don't actually have to endure that. I can actually take my life, be fully responsible for it. Take this power that I feel when I actually know what's in alignment, ground it, and make life happen. That I don't need to be clenched. I don't need to be tight. I don't need to be gripped down. I can just surrender my asshole, ground the energy through, and move forward. Because that's the other thing, right? When we're tolerating, when we're enduring, you can even feel the intensity on your muscles. Endurance isn't like this like free-flowing thing. It's like you've got to hustle through it, right? So if that's the way your body's reacting, and you're like that with all of your life, it's going to be pretty impossible to relax. If it's impossible to relax, it's going to be impossible to receive fully. Because now you're running on fumes. So the game isn't, I go from being a victim of life to now fighting life. It's like, oh, I'm just actually not going to participate in that world. I'm not going to participate in the world where I need to just like be okay with what's happening and be patient, because I can feel the deeper sense of alignment that needs to happen here. And that's what I'm going to follow. And following that doesn't mean I fight life. It actually means that I'm deeply surrendered to the reality and the truth of who I am. The reality of who I am, I really don't know how to leave a situation when someone's being condescending without being an absolute cunt. That's the reality of who I am right now. Do I need to grip down on it? No. I can be totally surrendered to that's where I am on my journey. Do I want to improve that? Absolutely. And I'll work on it. And I'll work on it with all the same level of grace and all the same level of presence. One of the things that I just taught in Supple was that in my experience, reception is a function of both grace and presence. You need to be able to have gratitude for the present moment to receive it fully. And so that means being in full approval of what it looks like. Sleaze Motel is in service to approval. So we don't know what's going to unleash when you finally choose alignment. It may be messy. It may be confronting. It may be unsanitized. And all of that's perfect. Let it be unsanitized. Let it be everything it's never gotten to be, so that you can come closer to embodying who you are and what you're meant to do in this life. You don't have to force away your alignment. So for those of you that are watching and watching live, I would love to hear what's landing and resonating for you in the comments. For those of you watching the replay, same thing. Let me know in the comments as well. I'd love to read a couple before I sign off, because I am so sweaty. So sweaty. Got some people saying that they're nailed. That's exactly where they are. Pushing away alignment. Yep. Perfect. Okay, well, if you are feeling called to work with me in any capacity, there are 3 ways currently. 1, Sleaze Motel is open for enrollment until November 19th. There are limited spots, so if this is something you desire, I suggest you get your application in ASAP. I'm just going to be really transparent about the price, which I rarely am, but it's $888 Canadian for the full 2 months. You can pay it in full, or you can pay it in 2 installments. We begin on the 19th, so you only have up until then to sign up. So that's option 1. Option 2 is to do a Supple one-on-one with me. This is a journey of in service to your opening that takes place in the bathtub. And it's an opportunity for you to actually feel energy in your body and letting it move and decalcify. And then if you're like, I want to go in this for the long run, you can start off with the 6-month supple journey, which will be enrolling in end of January, February. And you can just message me to go on the wait list for that. Okay, so those are the options that are currently available. If you're like, no, I want more attention, my one-on-one is available, but it's a little bit more complicated to get into that. So send me a DM for that one. We've got another comment here. What's coming up for me is how rigid my body is and how when I go for a massage, the therapist always comments on how tight my muscles always are. Yeah. That's a function of tolerating. Like, I got to tolerate this massage instead of like, can I keep letting my muscles soften? Can I breathe into it? Can I relax fully? This idea that we even need a massage therapist to like release a muscle when we can release most of it and then they can just move things around for us. So, okay, leave you guys there. Have a fabulous rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing your applications and direct messages. Bye.